Welcome to Buffalo After Dark, everybody. It's your Wednesday night uncensored, unfiltered, and unafraid sports show. You still up? This episode of Buffalo After Dark starts now. Welcome aboard to Buffalo After Dark, everybody. It is Wednesday night, January 4th, and you may be wondering, hey, we're actually back a week early from our nice little Christmas break, but, certain circumstances happen. We're going to talk about everything from Monday night with the whole Damar Hamlin situation, but first I want to say, Bob, it's been a while. Happy New Year. Sucks we got to be back on for this, but, it's important that we get out what we know, and, we figured, hey, let's open up the forum to everybody tonight.
Yeah, and first off, Happy New Year to you too, Tom. I know these last couple of days has been heart-wrenching. I know it's been really hard on a lot of people about the whole Damar Hamlin situation, and that's pretty much going to be the theme of tonight's episode, is basically just talk about the situation. So we want to keep you guys up to date and kind of give you a stage-by-stage, day-by-day, by hour, status from as of this recording.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And of course, you guys are welcome to join us. We have the Facebook chat live open, and also we've got the phone open. So if you want to give us a call, 929-205-6099, we'll get you on the air. And of course, if you're on our Horns and Hooves Entertainment page, you can chat with us directly on there. So let's get right into it, because there has been some new information that's come out over the last 48 hours, but we kind of want to do a little bit of a reset and give you a timeline of what exactly ended up happening, and then we'll kind of go from there. So of course, the breaking news lasts ever since Monday night. Damar Hamlin ends up collapsing on the field, and this actually happened with about 6 minutes left in the first quarter. The score was 7-3. It was a 13-yard catch for wide receiver T. Higgins. What looked like wasn't a serious hit. Damar Hamlin gets right up, and then he just collapses on the field. And at that point, the good thing is the medical personnel on both sides, they got to him quickly. And we were thinking, it's like, okay, maybe my initial thought was this, possibly like a stinger or something happened along those lines, or something, possibly just got the wind knocked out of him. But then when I end up, stepping back into my living room, and I'm like, okay, I hear them saying that the guy's getting CPR. I'm like, holy crap, things just got real. So then, of course, after that, he was taken to UC Medical Center, and it's a level 1 trauma center, a lot like ECMC here in Buffalo. And from that point, some information that we didn't know that came out afterwards is that not only did he have to get shocked on the field by an AED, but some other information that came out is that Hamlin had to be resuscitated a second time, and this was when he arrived at UC Medical Center. So luckily, all of that went okay. That being said, of course, Stefon Diggs took an Uber, went to the hospital, wanted to be with them. Zach Taylor, the Bengals coach, same thing, and several other teammates and other players on both sides actually ended up staying there. From that also, the good news that has come out is that even though Damar Hamlin is still critical, it's not as bad of a situation as it had been, because originally he was on 100% oxygen, and then they were able to take that down to 50%, which means that surely but slowly things are starting to improve. And the other thing that came out today is that they flipped him onto his stomach just to help relieve some of the pressure in the lungs and in the blood and so forth, and help with that situation. Biggest thing I would say, both teams handled it, I think, the best that they could have given the situation. And I will say, Sean McDermott is a leader among leaders. I mean, how he was able to keep everything and, in the right frame of mind given the situation. I don't know how he did that, because obviously we've gone through some rough things this year. Of course, you have Luke Knox that died. You had the top shooting in May that killed 10 people. You have the first Buffalo storm that killed like 2 or 3 people. You had the blizzard from a week and a half ago that ended up killing 42 as of this afternoon. And then now this, where we almost saw somebody die on the field Monday night. It's, a lot of stuff that this community has gone through, but there were several good things. First, I want to give a shout out to the Bengals organization and their fan base, because their fans were really freaking awesome with how they've handled this, and they've stood by us. It's one of those things, and just seeing some of the video with the fans praying together, and the fact that the Bengals fans basically initiated going to the hospital and doing the vigil with the Bills fans, and they stood together. That was really cool. And then for the teams to walk out together at the same time, that was cool. And also from there, just even listening to a press conference with Zach Taylor today and several of the Bengals teammates, just basically, how they handled it. It's excellent. They first rate job by both sides. And then on top of that, the other thing I will say is Damar Hamlin's charity. I can say that all of us, the four of us that manage this page, have all given to it. And right now it went from basically only having a goal of 2,500, and as of right before the show, it's at almost 6.8 million. So it's really cool to see a lot of players, a lot of people like ourselves, and and even kids giving money. I mean, there was like case where like 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds I saw earlier that threw in whatever they could. They didn't have to do that, but they chose to do that, and it's just really neat to see a lot of that happening. It's just basically everybody came together, and the way I look at it, it's something where football is something we all love. We talk about it all the time on this page. We talk about hockey all the time on this page. We talk about a lot of different sports on this page, but one of the things that I can tell you is when something like this happens, it kind of makes you really think about things. And all of us came together, which is awesome. My thought when it happened during the game, I didn't give a crap about how the game ended out, and honestly, I don't even give a crap about the standings right now. It's I just want to make sure at least that things are fine, and at least it looks like stuff is starting to move in the right direction. So thank goodness for that. Everyone handled it I think the best way possible, and it's good to see stuff's going in the better direction. So just kind of some stuff on that, and I'm like, holy crap, I just did a 10-minute monologue. And yes, I am drinking Bill's beer tonight.
Yeah, shove it in your mouth. But no, what's funny though, Tom, is that the whole timeline from what you were just pretty much explaining without interruption, I think it really says a lot. Like, from the time of the beginning of the game, we were all thinking this was going to be the game of the year, next to, of course, the Bills-Chiefs game, but that was irrelevant at that point. But we were just focused on that Cincinnati game. We were all so excited. We were all ready to go and thinking of whatnot. And my first reaction when Hamlin went down was, at first, because the way he went down, I thought it was a concussion or maybe like a shoulder injury, because he was down on the ground, and that's what every player in the NFL does.
Right.
Is they go down on the ground to relieve pressure. But in Hamlin's case, that was very different, because Taron Johnson got injured with a concussion 5 minutes prior to that injury with Hamlin. So we were thinking, oh, for fuck's sake, they're already down 2 secondary players. That's not good, and they're going to get exposed. And sure enough, the game gets paused at the 5:58 mark in the first quarter, and Damar Hamlin is on the ground. Literally, he's shaking, like almost as if he's going into shock. And the next thing you know, medical staff and first responders, team doctors and trainers, they were all there. They were ready to get to Hamlin. And I'm pretty sure it's required in any professional sport that you have to have a medical degree to work in this stage. So, shout out to the first responders for being there on the dot for Hamlin. And it's unfortunate too, because it's never happened before where an NFL player or any pro athlete in this level ever have a CPR done on the ice or down on the field or whatever, or on the court, no matter the sport. Because the last, incident that's happened to that was Chris Pronger 25 years ago with the St. Louis Blues.
Yeah, 1998.
Yeah, and he took a slap shot to the heart, and he was knocked out cold, and with cardiac arrest, and next thing you know, the guy is in shambles, and Chris Pronger gets revived, and he was able to live to tell the tale. But as for Hamlin, though, it's a very scary sight in general, because a lot of people at that game had different emotions going through their minds. And the first reaction was like, oh no, hope the guy's okay. And then they bring out the ambulance. Then they bring back the CPR, team. They bring out all those guys. And the next thing you know, you see Josh Allen. You see Joe Mixon, Joe
Diggs.
Burrow. Yeah, Stephon Diggs, Tre'Davious White, Ed Oliver.
Yeah, Mitch Morse with Trey White. I mean, it's...
Yeah. When I saw all that, I'm like thinking something is seriously wrong. And I was watching this game with my wife because we watch every Bills game together. My wife and I were watching this game, and we were saying to ourselves, man, that's scary to see your friend and your teammate, your brother, go on in an NFL field doing what they love only to get CPR. And in those cases, it could be a 50-50 chance whether if you live or you die. It's not a guarantee, and it also depends on the person. But in Hamlin's case, this was nobody's fault. It was a complete accident, even if it was, by that standard, because there is a lot that we need to go through for this topic for tonight, because this whole thing is about Hamlin. But the team itself was just in complete distraught. The Bengals were no better because the Bengals were they were like really concerned for him and saying, hopefully he's okay. If it was like a concussion or like another injury, whatever, get him off the field and get him fixed up. But this was nothing like that. This was cardio arrest. This is very serious. And the thing that really threw me off with it is that with my wife getting emotional about it, and I don't blame her because I'm like, we're looking at someone that could have potentially died on the field. And that would have been like, wow, what does the NFL do at that point? But luckily for Hamlin, he's in really good hands at ICU at the Cincinnati University Medical Center. So he's getting the best treatment as possible. Big shout out to the first responders for that. No, it was just a very long commercial break, longer than usual. And the next thing you know, my wife and I are just standing there really thinking, hoping everything is okay. We're praying to God and all that. But I think the thing that really stood out to me about that game was the fans. The fans, they were told to go home, don't worry about it, whatever. They didn't even bother. They stayed because they wanted to make sure that, he was okay. And hopefully he gets to the hospital so that way he can, get the treatment he needs.
Right.
So, and the Bengals fans, Bills fans alike, you could see some resignation, anger, tears, and, and disbelief and crying. And, I mean, it's just, it goes on and on and on. And Bengals fans and Bills fans alike went right outside of the University of Cincinnati's Medical Center on that night, and they basically did a ceremonial vigil for Hamlin in case if, God forbid, knock on wood, and he, passes away. And they don't want to look like, jerks about it, of course, but they didn't have to do that. But I think something about this relationship with Bills fans and Bengals fans is very unique, and it's very different in the last half decade. So at that point on, it doesn't really matter about the game anymore. And at that point, I didn't even care because I was honestly distraught. I was, nervous. I was concerned about Hamlin's health. And it's somebody that we'd never met. And I think to say that about an individual who's made a huge impact in 24 hours, the 48 hours really tells a story about the sport of football. And it brings people across the United States, no matter your political affiliation, no matter your interests, people came together and said, we got to go and support this guy.
Yeah, 100% agree. And actually, I know Adam's not going to be on tonight. He did let us know. I'm not going to say what went on because that's in our private chat. But basically, from there, just to see some of the other things that ended up happening with how Cincinnati decided to light up their skyline and the stadium, put on blue lights, which they did. Then their baseball team, the Cincinnati Reds, actually ended up. I think they kind of started the trend where they ended up putting prayers for Damar Hamlin graphic on their scoreboard that you can see from the bridge going across the Ohio River, and then of course the Kansas City the Kansas City Chiefs did that today, where they ended up lighting up both their scoreboards at Arrowhead, which we went there back in October. Great fan base, by the way, and then of course all the other teams ended up doing that. I mean, the Washington Capitals had a moment of silence for the Sabres game last night, which we'll briefly say that the Sabres got the win in overtime. Tage Thompson, his third goal of the game, his 30th of the year, 3 minutes into overtime, and basically, it was just a coincidence. It was the number 3. So that happened. But on top of that, the Patriots have, been saying a lot of good things. The San Francisco 49ers lit up their scoreboards.
Pretty much everybody.
Yeah, the Dolphins even lit their stadium canopy up in red, white, and blue. So it's one of those where all the teams are showing their support. Sabres obviously are showing their support, and it's good to see. Like, basically every single sport is coming together for it, and it doesn't matter like what sport you're from. They're all supporting the whole thing, and it's just one of those where it shows. It's like, you don't have to be in a specific sport. A lot of these guys are people just like us. I mean, at the end of the day, they go through a lot of the same stuff that we do.
And you know what? It doesn't make a difference because they're human beings, and the human side of the game came out and was exposed. Not in a bad way, of course, but like it shows the character of how a lot of people, like a normal person would, showing some respect and showing some empathy and condolences. Now, granted, he's not dead, but the term condolences could be used even if the person is not dead. It's kind of like saying, sending out our thoughts and prayers. A lot of it is really huge impact. Like, if you really pay attention to the sports world, there's been a lot of shit that's been going on with all across the United States and Canada even, where some teams that all across Major League Baseball, the NHL, NFL, etc., were all lighting up, like you said, about lighting the stadiums red, white, and blue. There was some memorials, some moments of silence for Damar Hamlin. There was a bunch of other things too, like Dan Orlovsky said a live prayer, not that cliche like everybody says on the national media spotlight. So he actually had an actual prayer sent out to the public. If any of you saw that, that's basically what happened today. And I have tremendous respect for him for doing that. I sincerely do. Yeah. And
Scott Van Pelt, when he was covering SportsCenter right after the game, I mean, they had some really good stuff that was on there. And even Nick Wright decided to break character, and he actually was really deep in thought, and even he had a lot of good things to say as well, which normally we never say that about Nick Wright, but
yeah, I mean, Nick Wright's a dick, but in general, for him to come out of that for once, forget about the Bills, because we all know he hates the Bills, but just for him to show gratitude and empathy towards somebody, of an athlete like Damar Hamlin, I think it really shows a lot of respect to a lot of people within the human nature. But not everybody felt that way, because people like Skip Bayless, holy shit, I wanted to punch him in the fucking face.
Yeah, Shannon Sharp almost wanted to today too, and I think and I know he was like mad not even 4 minutes into his monologue today, because Bayless kept interrupting him, and he's like, "Oh, I'm not taking down that tweet. I'm not doing this. I'm not." Well, screw you, Skip Bayless, piece of crap. Well,
seriously, you see what he said though in the tweet?
I did, and then he was backtracking, and he made it worse.
Yeah, and I'll read it to you for those who have not read this yet, because there are a lot of people that are focusing on Hamlet, but they're not focusing on what Skip Bayless is saying, because he has no remorse. But Skip Bayless, for those of you who didn't read it, says, "No doubt the NFL is considering postponing the rest of this game, but how? This late in the season, a game change of this magnitude is crucial to the regular season outcome, which certainly seems so irrelevant." Yeah,
and basically, the way I read it, and the way 99% of everybody read it, is it's like, oh, the playoff standings are more important than someone's health.
Seriously. And then he tries to backtrack it by simply saying, I didn't mean to offend anybody, which it was a half-ass apology if anybody saw it. Because I don't really watch it. I don't watch ESPN. Never, and I haven't watched it in 15 years. But I only watch ESPN for like Monday night games or like the NHL games or whatever. But no. But for those who did, Skip Bayless was shaking like this on the broadcast when it happened, and he was basically trying to man up and say, I owe an apology to the Hamlin family, which he never really did. He didn't really say it. He kind of just he kind of just said a half-ass apology and then kind of just walked away
Yeah,
with it.
like he was forced to do it.
Yeah, and then Shannon Sharp wasn't even there for that. I think it's to kind of collect his, his thoughts and say, okay, I'm not going to punch him in the face today. And
Right.
so I think that was the mindset going in. And then today, holy shit, this escalated so quickly. And Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp meet since for the first time since that whole incident broke out. And like you said, Shannon Sharp was trying to do his opening monologue about how he had sympathy for Damar Hamlin and how he was sending out his thoughts and prayers, the usual stuff for the time being. What does Skip Bayless do? He acts like a fucking prick on national television and basically says, "Well, I'm not deleting the tweet." Or most people agree with my tweet. No, they don't. You fucking prick. If anything,
Des Bryant ripped him a new one on there. T.O. ripped him a new one on there. RG3 hates him on there. I mean, pretty much a lot of the current players and past players absolutely can't stand him. Even LeBron James can't stand him. What does that tell you?
it tells me a lot. Skip Bayless thinks that he's God, and to say things like that about someone's life that's on the line, Skip Bayless thinks, oh yeah, he'd be fine. It's nothing different than a torn ACL. We're all making a big deal about it, but no, it's not even that. We all clearly showed we don't care about the game right now. We only care about Damar Hamlin's safety and his health. That's all we care about. And Skip Bayless had to add more fuel on fire, and he did it on purpose, just for attention.
Yeah. And even for anyone who follows our Twitter page at Horns and Hooves ENT, even on there, and actually you guys saw this too, I even challenged Skip Bayless. It's like, hey, you want to show an apology? Donate $100,000 to the charity, for the Toys for Kids. He doesn't do anything. Shannon Sharp actually donated. What does that tell you? Shannon Sharp actually cares.
You know what it is? Shannon Sharp also understands the circumstances because he played in the NFL, and he mentioned something about, quote, he watched his brother half paralyzed or something like that. I don't know if it's
temporary paralysis on the field when he was still in the game. And plus, Shannon Sharp had some nasty injuries over his career.
And it's no different. And you know what? Shannon Sharp, even though I don't agree with him on some of his opinions, and I don't agree with him on his political affiliation or whatever, because they do tend to do that, I think at the end of the day, he is a human being, and he has moral, reality. He has a reality to the situation. Like, he has shown remorse throughout the last 48 hours. And I think Shannon Sharp, and I respect him because he really came out and he showed professionalism to the best of his ability. And he knew when the time was right to come back. And Skip Bayless acted like an asshole the entire time. Like, I don't understand why he did that to begin with. Like, wait, why is it that he's so insecure about simply putting his ego to the side by simply just saying, I wish him all the best, or I hope for a speedy recovery. We're sending our thoughts and prayers. That would have been the easiest thing to do. But instead, he makes it about me, all about me.
Yeah, exactly. And there are some good things that came out. So actually, I'm on our Twitter right now, and shout out to this person, Madeline Hall. So this is being reported by Jeff Russo, who's one of the anchors at Channel 7 here in Buffalo. But she ended up driving from Buffalo to Cincinnati to drop off 100 meals for lunch today to the ICU staff over at UC Medical in Cincinnati. And she said she partnered with the Thurman Thomas Foundation to go ahead and do the catering order. So, that's good to see. And then besides that, just a lot of the same thing. Even the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, they were talking about it today. And as much as I don't follow the Browns or anything, and I don't agree with a lot of what they say on that show, the times I've seen it, they had nothing but good things to say also about Hamlin and the situation. And and Jack Eichel didn't even acknowledge things earlier because he was on Twitter, and all of his other teammates were giving well wishes to Damar Hamlin. Eichel's like, oh no, this is all about me. This is what we're doing about the game. It's like, screw you, Eichel. No wonder we got rid of you, and we ended up better for it.
Yeah. Some Bills fans or Buffalo fans in general commented on it, saying that Jack, you've shown no remorse since you left Buffalo or anything like that. Like, it's almost like if he's insecure or he's just a miserable human being. But people on the Vegas side of things were coming out and saying, get over it. It's an injury. I'm like, no, it's not. That's a life and death situation.
Right. Yeah.
And
we literally watched someone almost die on the field Monday night.
Yeah. And it's like, that's not funny. I mean, it's like, That's a very serious matter. And the
Right.
fact that some people have, and unfortunately, Tom, we live in a world where some people, not all of them, but some people just have no remorse. They have no sympathy for human life, and they don't care. They only care about themselves.
Right, exactly. And the Rochester Emeralds who played tonight, they actually did a moment of tribute for Damar Hamlin. Also, they actually lit up the ice in red, white, and blue. So they ended up doing that. But just outside of those very few people who are being total morons about everything, it's really bringing out the good in so many others, and that's one of the things you hope to see. Obviously, the last time that anything remotely close even happened like that, and you probably might remember this, but the Detroit Red Wings game against the Nashville Predators back in November 2005, where Yuri Fisher ends up making it to the bench and he collapses on the bench, goes into cardiac arrest, and then they had to give him CPR and shock him on the bench.
I remember
And that ended his career.
I remember that. I mean, and that's the thing too that worries me about this whole thing with Hamlin is if he comes back, if he comes out alive, God forbid, I hope he does. But it makes me question: will he ever play football again? Because you have to remember, when you go into cardiac arrest, it usually means that your body starts to shut down, and your brain is losing a lack of oxygen. So your brain needs oxygen to function. So my thinking is, after this is all said and done, does he go into paralysis? Does he have a deformity going on inside his brain? What really happened to him? Because not every athlete comes out like Chris Pronger, who all of a sudden just came out like normal.
Yeah, and he ended up playing another 12 seasons after the injury, or even the time. Let's look back to the carotid artery injuries where Richard Zednick got sliced, Clint Malarchuk got sliced. They both came back and played more seasons, but that's a little different. But I mean, literally, those two players could have almost died on the ice when that happened, and it's we've seen people get paralyzed on the field before. I mean, Ryan Shazier, which luckily he was able to walk again, but that happened at that stadium. Then of course we've seen other injuries. Tua got his brain destroyed at that stadium earlier this year when he had that concussion. Of course, now Damar Hamlin going into cardiac arrest on the field after a hit that didn't look all that bad. And then, of course, we've seen ACL blown out before. I mean, there was the whole AB injury when he got destroyed by Vontae's Burfict over there. I mean, it's almost like, in a sense, I mean, some could say, yeah, that stadium's cursed. I mean, there's been some brutal injuries and incidents in that stadium ever since it opened. Now, nobody can ever predict that stuff. Now, Vontae Burfict was just a total douchebag in terms of a player, and that's why no team ever wants him again.
And the Dolphins are a corrupt organization.
Well, a lot of the Dolphins management might be out if they don't win, because apparently Stephen Ross put them all on notice saying that all your jobs are on the line if you don't win.
Well, that's their problem.
If that happens, yeah, and I could care less about Ross with the whole tampering thing anyway, and the whole issue with going back to Brian Flores, but that's for a whole different show.
Yeah, that's irrelevant now. But no, but I get your point. There's a lot of people that have made that claim. My wife said the same thing. She's like, Paycor Stadium or Paul Brown Stadium is cursed because there's been so many crucial injuries that have either ended players' careers or that severely injured him. And the one I think you forgot to mention was in the playoffs in 05 or it was 06 or whatever, when Carson Palmer blew out his knee in the wild card game against the Steelers. When they won Super Bowl 50.
Yeah, I think I might have referenced it as the ACL, but I didn't put the name to it. But yeah, there's been some crazy stuff in that stadium, and and their fan base has been through a lot too with seeing all of that.
Right, and you know what though, and again, like I said, I respect Bengals fans for being there, staying there with the Bills Mafia, and just being there to support them and all that. You have to call total strangers, mind you, people that they've never met that are opposing fans of an opposite team. Mm-hmm. Nobody's ever met anybody there.
Yeah,
I mean, and they made new friends, of course, but like. That whole tragedy, man, that left a huge impact on not just the NFL but in the world. It really did, because how many players in the NFL go into cardiac arrest in the middle of a game?
Yeah, it doesn't happen. That's And that's the thing. And these guys are in such good shape, and they take care of themselves, and they do everything they can to make sure that they stay in good shape. And it's just something where you just don't see that happen. And same thing with hockey, same thing with basketball, same thing with soccer, same thing with baseball. I mean, it's one of them things you just don't see stuff like that ever happen. So, it's very rare. But then, one of the things we'll get into a little bit. There have been some doctors that have speculated what the whole phenomenon could have happened, and I just want to kind of give some insight on that. So, first and foremost, at least the personnel were there when they needed to be, which that led to the quick response, and that obviously helps. And plus, that stadium is very close to the trauma center, so that's good. But what some doctors have speculated is that it might have been a case of commotio cordis, which is a phenomenon where if you take a trauma to the chest and you take it basically at the exact moment at the wrong time in the heart's electrical cycle, it basically causes it to short circuit, and you're going into ventricular fibrillation, and then basically from there it's CPR, and you're getting shocked. So
I think it happens only in between beats of the heart. I really don't know.
Yeah, it's sure, something crazy. But
hey, Adam.
I know you're having a crap night, but thanks for joining us.
Yeah, wasn't a good day. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, we're not even gonna mention what happened, but thanks for jumping on. I mean, we're just talking about the whole Hamlin situation, so I'll open up the floor to you, and whatever you want to say about it, go ahead and have your piece.
Okay. Well, I'll say first off, pray for the guy as much as you can. I truly believe he's going to be okay, and that's what everyone else should believe at the same time. It's really unfortunate that something like this happens to such a young guy, but at the same time, you have to realize too that you're playing a contact sport. It's happened before. It's not like it's never happened. It's happened in hockey. It's happened in a lot of sports where the inevitable is going to happen once in a blue moon, and when it does, it's terrible. But this is why, at the same time, people bitch about how professional players of any sport get paid millions of dollars, and they go out there and put their heart on the field every night. And I know from what I've seen from Hamlin, the guy put his hearts on his sleeve. He's a young kid. He's hungry, and I really, really hope, and I really, really pray that he's going to be able to come back to football, because he's really good at it. He's a good safety. He's he's got his whole future ahead of him. But at the same time, it's it does happen, and again, it's really unfortunate. But all we can do now is just really hope that he's going to come out of this unscathed, and hopefully still have a career when it's said and done. But in the end, the only thing we can hope for right now, and I'm not a Bills fan. I'm a football fan, and any sports base of hockey, football, whatever, how terrible this is, and it's so bad. But at the same time, everybody came together. I really give props to the Bengals fans, the team, the ownership, for how classy and how well they treated what was happening in the seriousness of the situation. Obviously, the emergency staff, obviously the paramedics, the hospital that's caring really good for Hamlin right now. But in the end, it's really unfortunate, and it's really sad. But all we can do right now is just hope that he comes back from this, and he's Hamlin, and he's going to be a safety for the Bills.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah, same here. I mean, and for someone to be 24 and have that happen, and basically your life's on the line at that point, it's kind of like one of those things. Playing sports, a lot of times we think we're invisible, and we think things won't necessarily happen, and I'll tell you, I mean, I've had some nasty stuff. I mean, I've had cracked ribs. I've had my knee torn twice. I mean, I actually had a tumor in my neck that I had to have surgery for, and luckily it wasn't cancer, but thinking about it, when you go through something like that, regardless of what the injury is, it kind of makes you think. It makes you stop and really appreciate the different things that you have, and it makes you appreciate the fact that you can do so many different things, and it's like one of those. I remember when I cracked my ribs, I think I totally was not myself for about 6 weeks, just dealing with that and just having it hurt to breathe every single time you're breathing with it and nothing works. Torn knee, same thing. It was like 8 weeks both times, and luckily I didn't have to have anything done to it, but it was one of those deals where going through stuff like that. And I know Bob, you've gone through some stuff. Adam, I know you've gone through stuff in combat, so it's it totally gives you a whole different look on so many different things.
Well, there's certain ways to look at it too. You can look at it from my standpoint. My standpoint was, when I was in the army, it was you were paid to be shot at. We were paid to do whatever. In sports, there's always a risk. Every player goes on the ice, and it's the same as going to work every day. Mm-hmm. If you're doing a dangerous job, you're hoping every day you're going to come home in one piece. And I'm sure every time players play a game, I know if I was a football player, I'd be hoping, I wasn't going to get ran over with some 400-pound linebacker,
right,
bulldozer. You know what I mean? Like, it's you want to go to work and come back the same way you went to work. You don't want to go to work and come back and something like that happens. Like, you could have a broken leg and then you're off for 6 months or whatever, or the worst can happen, like what happened to Hamlin. It's not something that obviously he planned. Obviously, he didn't know it was going to happen. Nobody knew it was going to happen, but
it's unexpected.
It was happened. A freak accident, basically.
Basically, yes, but like it goes back to how Bobby said that it happens to Chris Pronger. Chris Pronger got a slap shot in the chest.
Yep.
Nobody expected that to happen, but when it happened, it sent chills across the league, because then every defenseman was not as willing to go down and block shots, because why would you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was just it was just a realization that that can happen. And then when something like that happens, then it comes more real to people. And that's the game they play. That's the risk they take, and they're paid well for it, and they're paid well for it for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, and even some unrelated stuff. I mean, well, yeah, get crushed by Gilbert Brown when he was in the league, when he was like almost 400 pounds. That's one thing, the huge tackle that he was. But even more recently, I remember the whole Alex Smith injury, when he almost died from sepsis with that leg injury, when he had it broken on the field, and he had like
when he played for Washington.
Yeah, and he had 17 surgeries, and he almost lost his leg, and actually almost died at one point just because the infection was so bad. I mean,
you don't know, right? It's kind of I always say, like, my saying is, like, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. It's meant to happen. It's meant to happen, right? All the time I spent overseas, I never put my mindset in the that I was going to die. I never looked at it that way, because if I looked at it that way every day, then it would make me more susceptible to be in that situation. So I always looked at it like, if it's meant to happen, it's meant to happen. But if it doesn't, it doesn't. But if it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
Right.
You know what? And that's the risk. That's the risk that I took. That's the risk that, people take when they go to do certain jobs. And, it's high risk, high reward. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about all this is that we've all been waiting patiently now for the last 24 to 48 hours just for at least a glimmer of hope since Monday night. We've all just been praying and praying and praying. And yesterday was just really stressful on its own. Nobody got any information, not even out of Schefter or Ian Rappaport, because it was a very private timing of everything from that perspective, because nobody got any information about anything except for like the local newspapers in like Cincinnati were basically saying, you know, Hamlin is getting a reduced oxygen from the ventilator, which was at what 100% of oxygen, and it's down to like 50. So at least there's a glimmer of hope there. At least there's some sort of promise. And the doctors even came out and said that there's a possibility that we don't know what the outcome is going to be after the procedure, but chances are that he's going to make it, which I'm very happy that it looks like that. But, you know, with cardiac arrest, you never know. It could very well be.
It's a crapshoot.
Yeah, it could really hit the crapshoot pretty quickly.
The thing with it is the hurt is the most delicate thing in your body, but at the same time, it's the strongest thing in your body. It's the thing that keeps you fucking alive. But at the same time, it could be, you know, I feel bad for what's the name that hit him?
Oh, T. Higgins.
T. Higgins, yes.
T. Higgins, you know, just doing his job.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't a dirty hit. It wasn't anything. It was just, you know, him getting paid to do what he does, and he did his job.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like, obviously, the you know the guilt and whatever else that has to be on his mind right now. You know what I mean? Like he's you know, he's a good player. He's not dirty. He's never intended to hurt anybody.
Right.
You know
No,
what I mean?
not at all.
So like, just the stress and everything on him and his family and you know what I mean? It's just it's a snowball effect, because, you know, it starts there and then it works its way down, and it's like, you know, it affects a lot of people. And, you know, luckily, you know, I'm not saying any of this is a good situation. Nothing about this is good. But, you know, the fact that, like Bobby said, you know, he's breathing, you know, kind of on his own now. Like, he's kind of off. You know, that's progress, right? That's the big thing.
Yeah, that's huge progress. I mean, and to at least say, you know, that's better than what we got in the first night when he went into ICU. You know, that's a big factor there.
Right.
But as for T. Higgins, though, I feel so bad for him, because T. Higgins, I mean, obviously I was pissed that he got the first down because the Bills defense was doing their job. And
yeah, he got the 13-yard play.
And it was a 13-yard play at the 5:58 mark. So as soon as that happened, I was like, damn it, they got it first. And then another injury came about, because that was my first reaction. I thought he went down with a concussion. But then after a while, they kind of just fell out of play from there. But as for Higgins, though, the guy has just been getting like death threats and saying, you killed this guy, you should be off the team, you should be in jail. I should also mention Jamar Chase was in this as well, because he was a quote-unquote eyewitness. So, I mean, like, what the fuck did you guys expect him to do? Just sit there and do nothing? I mean, that's basically what happened. I mean, it was nobody's fault. It was an accident. It happened in the worst possible time. And the thing that scares me most about T. Higgins at this point is I don't know if the guy could fully function mentally after that. That dude will be scarred for life based on what happened on Monday.
That's a lot. You have to think too, like that. The next time I legit thought, like, I was watching the game when it happened, and I legit thought, like, when it happened, I thought it was like a helmet hit. I thought Higgins came down, they both hit, you know, head to head, and then he kind of went down, and then when he went down and he got back up, and then he collapsed. That's when I knew. I was like, oh shit, there's something more to this, because, you know, as soon as it happened, it was like, you know, a blink of an eye, it happened.
Right. Yeah, and for someone to fall back, you just don't see that.
No.
Yeah, I legit thought, like Bobby, I thought it was like a concussion thing. I thought he had knocked the fuck out, and then he got up and he tried to walk, and then I thought he just collapse, right? Like,
Right.
because I've had concussions. I played hockey in high school.
Yeah.
I've had them, and I know that, like, when you have a concussion, you don't realize it, and you try to get up and do whatever you're supposed to do, and then you realize, oh fuck, I'm hurt. But you don't, right?
Right. And concussions, concussions alone are no joke, but unfortunately, I would have rather have seen a concussion than cardiac arrest, if I'm being completely honest. Because at least with a concussion or with a torn ACL or any other injury for that matter, you're able to pull that person onto the side and get them treated and just continue on with the game, go on with your day. But in this case, that's not what happens. And I do agree, Adam, that that was my first initial reaction, was that I thought it was a concussion. But that's not what happens. And obviously the angle was, I saw two legs flat down like this, and there were two bodies covered it like this, nothing else in between. That's what I saw. And then afterwards, because when it first happened, I'm like, damn it, another injury, thinking whatever, but and then after a while, it's just kind of like became a bigger factor than it already was by that point. And to think that T. Higgins, of all people, great wide receiver, but it's like, I feel so bad for him. And there was even a picture, and I actually want to read it to you because I have it on my phone actually, and I saved it just in case for this episode. And it was saying that T. Higgins, on this tweet, it says, just stood with T. Higgins' mother, who was now walking with him, who had his arm wrapped around her, and T was one who collided with Damar Hamlin before he collapsed. So his mom was at the game, just pretty much comforting him, saying it's going to be okay. I know you didn't mean to do it. And obviously, watching that, obviously that wasn't on purpose by any means. And he did no wrong.
That's a misconception. He didn't do anything. All he did was his job.
Right. And he made the play he was supposed to make.
That's what he was supposed to do. That's what he's put on the field to do. He was supposed to cover Hamlin, and he ran into him, and it happened. And that's if people are that, because people are shitty in general. People are fucking shitty.
Oh yeah.
And if people are going to be, obviously, because you call shoot the messenger, shitting on the guy, death threats and blah blah, and all this, because people are shitty.
Oh
right?
yeah.
It's like not understanding the situation and thinking you know every fucking thing and you don't know shit.
Oh, I hate those people.
Yeah, they'll exploit a crisis for no reason whatsoever except to try and gain points.
It's like, okay, I'll say this, because this really pissed me off. Was people try the profit from sorrow, grief, and fucking shit because it's the easiest way to make money. It's the easiest way to fucking get attention, and it's the easiest way to fucking be a dick with trying to be polite at the same time. And I'll give you a fucking example. Is that goddamn sack of shit, Skip Bayless, that had the audacity to go on to Twitter, and I don't know how this guy is not lynched. He should be lynched in fucking quarters. But anyways, to go on Twitter and then after it happened, and to say what he said about how the game's not going to go, and he's all butthurt about how the game's not going to happen. That to me is Skip Bayless in his finest, because he's nothing but a piece of fucking dog shit that
Absolutely.
looks for all he does. All he does. If you look through all his tweets, he looks to cause shit and get attention. That's all he fucking does, and it's so fucking wrong. And how he's relevant or alive at this point, it should point to the fact that that's what's wrong with the world. If you think this guy's a fucking gem, you think this guy is right on what he says and how many times he's been called out on this fucking bullshit, like that's what's wrong. That's what's wrong. He's an absolute piece of giant shit.
I agree.
Yeah, 100% agree. And so we do have some new information that's coming out of CNN right now on the situation. So there's actually two pieces of information. So the first thing, Indianapolis Colts rookie safety Rodney Thomas ended up visiting Hamlin, and apparently they go back a long ways, and they've been friends for a lot of years actually. And they actually met at Central Catholic High School in Pittsburgh, where they grew up, and they were actually teammates for a lot of years, and they were actually close friends. So he ended up making the drive out to Cincinnati, and basically he visited him in the ICU, and he said that just being there helped calm him down with the situation, and it made the trip home a lot easier. And he said that Quote, "It made the trip home a lot easier. I could go home and know he's going to be straight. I got him. We all got him. Everybody's behind him. You see what's going on. Everybody's behind him. And when he walks out of there and sees the support he has, it's going to be a real special day." So basically, he ended up visiting him there, and he said, went on to say after that, no, quote, "No doubt in my mind, he's a fighter. No other thought in my mind of him walking out under his own powers." So that's what he ends up saying there. And then the other thing that CNN reported is when everybody saw what happened, that was the most watched Monday Night Football ever on ABC, ESPN, or any of the networks. And they said that between 8:30 and 10:09 p.m. when the whole thing happened, 23,788,000 viewers across all three networks, which actually topped the previous record of 21.8 million for a Packers Vikings game back in 2009. So basically, you literally had like at least 25 to 30% of the entire U.S. watching this.
I mean,
well, and the same time too, like it's at times like that it brings out the worst in people, but at the same time it brings out the best, because all the sports fans, doesn't matter, NHL, NBA, there's players from all over the fucking world tweeting about this and paying attention to it. And everyone's prayers for Hamlin. You know what I mean? It's a really good thing, but it's unfortunate the way it happened. But that's what it takes to sometimes to bring everyone together, is something like this. And I hope, like I pray the guy walks out of there on his own power and fucking goes back and continues his career. But
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, worst case, if he can't, at least him walking out alive is going to be the most important thing. Obviously,
that's the number one goal. And right now, the no offense to you, Tom, or anything like that, but the whole most watched game bullshit on Monday night and all this stuff, it doesn't matter. It's a hearsay to me. Like that stat flew over my head quicker than I took a shit this morning.
I mean, to be fair though, with the 25 million views on the game, I think people were there to watch Joe Burrow versus Josh Allen, not a cardiac arrest on action. I think that's why it got a lot of attention to begin with, is because a lot of people tuned in and they wanted to find out what exactly is going on and how did it happen. And I think, to be fair, there's a lot of people that are curious that never even heard of the situation, because a couple of my coworkers didn't even hear about it. They're not even sports fans. And I had to explain to them that, a guy on the Buffalo Bills that ended up having cardiac arrest on the field yesterday. And then like, did they revive him? And I'm like, well, they're trying to work on that as of now, and they're in Cincinnati. So, because let's think about this for a second. Because before that cardiac arrest incident, a lot of people were hyping up the game. We were all excited. I mean, we're not going to deny that. We all said, we're excited to see Josh Allen versus Joe Burrow. And that was what we were thinking going into this thing, a difficult normal night. And then have a good game. That's what was the aspect of it. But then in the middle of the game, of course, we all know what happened.
Yeah, and plus, I'm going to say fucking 10 million of those views probably came after the fact, when everyone's like, tweeting about it and everyone's checking out the game. Everybody's going in to see what's going on. I'm assuming millions of people came in just to see, what the situation was.
I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt that.
That's all it is, dude. Like there was probably 5 or 10 million people that came in to see. Oh, I don't watch football, but someone went down with a cardiac arrest on the field. Now I want to watch what's happening. Right? I'm not taking away from the game. Obviously, the game was a big game. Everybody wanted to watch it. Like I'm not a Bills fan or a fucking Bengals fan, but obviously I'm going to watch that game because I love the Bills. I'm not a Bills fan, but you know yourselves.
Like you just support the Bills, basically.
Yeah, you're a fan of football.
I support the Bills. I love Josh Allen. He's obviously stud, but I appreciate good football, and anybody that knows good football is going to watch a good game, and that's a good game, right? So,
yeah, absolutely. So, with that, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens over like the coming days and the next few weeks, just given the situation. One of the things that the Bills did do today is that they went through their walkthrough and they ended up they're prepping for the New England game, and I'm pretty sure, knowing that that's going to be a home game, they're going to do some type of tribute probably before the game even starts, and they'll probably air it on TV, just for everyone to take a look at that. But I mean, looking at this coming Sunday though, I do think the Bills are going to go in and they're going to have a purpose, and they're going to want to win it for number 3. I mean, that's what they're going to do, and they'll probably take that through the rest of the season, however long they go. Are
they going to wear the Hamlin jerseys? They're going to wear number 3?
Probably. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure how they're going to work that, but
I mean, I do know that there was a ceremonial vigil that took place yesterday at Hard Rock Stadium at the Bills store. They were doing a ceremonial vigil for Hamlin, and I know they did one late last night also at 8:55, because that was a representation of the time that it happened at the at ICU in Cincinnati.
Yeah, it'd just be cool if they even did it for like warm ups or whatever. You know what I mean? Just to wear the jersey on the field and put the blue lights across the whole stadium. You know what I mean? And just do it that way.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But, yeah, go ahead, Tom.
And actually, what I was going to say with what's coming up, with the Bills doing the walkthrough and everything, and of course New England, the interesting thing is going to be, we obviously know that the Bills and Bengals are not going to resume playing this week at all in terms of that game. But one of the possible scenarios that's come out as of the last day or so is there's a possibility of a Week 19 being added, where basically the Bills and Bengals will make up the remainder of the game, and essentially the rest of the AFC is going to go on a bye week.
And you know what? That would be probably the most watched game ever. That I can guarantee it. I can guarantee it now.
Mm-hmm. And another scenario that came out was from Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk on NBC in America. He went on 937 The Fan, and he said that he got a win from, quote, a high-level NFL people that the following schedule could, the keyword is could happen, is Week 19 would be Bills versus Bengals. Then it would be the NFC wildcard playoff games, and the entire AFC conference would get a bye. And then Week 20 would be the AFC wildcard games, and then the NFC playoff games would get a bye. But to me, that doesn't make any sense, because you're talking about giving everybody else a chance to get a breather before the playoffs or even during the playoffs, and yet you have two teams that are in the conversation for the Super Bowl that have to play one another with any intention of a bye. So it's like, if they're that insecure about finishing the game, why don't they just do Week 19 on a Thursday and then play the game on Saturday, and then whoever else has to go on from there? That's what I think. Because if you remember during the snowstorm time, the Bills had to play 2 games in 5 days during the Thanksgiving break. I mean, it's doable. They could do it, but I don't know if they want to go through that again, because it's a very tricky fucking situation where the NFL is at, because they're in a situation that they've never been in before, and they have to make a critical decision. Like, I was very happy when Zach Taylor and Sean McDermott, and I must mention it, is that they came out on the field and they said that they were not going to play the rest of this game. And Roger Goodell allegedly said, you guys have 5 minutes to get ready for the game. And the coach straight up said, no, we're not doing that. And Sean McDermott then told Zach Taylor that I have to be there for tomorrow at the hospital. And that was like the only key point he needed. And he got all the guys in the locker room. And that's where all the drama that took place with, Joe Burrow and T. Higgins and with Josh Allen just hugging it out, just talking and saying hopefully he's okay and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to go through that.
Yeah.
And I think that the relationship between the two teams, and we mentioned it before, is so powerful. I think at this point it's even unbreakable between Bills and Bengals fans. It's almost to that point.
Yeah, it's like one of those. It's not a heated rivalry by any means. It's more of like a friendly rivalry, basically. It's like, yeah, of course, anytime we go to Cincinnati, we want the Bills to win, but we have that healthy respect for the other side, and we know that they do for us. Even another scenario that's out on NFL.com right now is, according to NFL research, they do have some playoff clinching scenarios in play if they decide not to reschedule the game. So here's what came out on that. So basically, if the game's not rescheduled, the Bengals would clinch the AFC North, but they would not have a path to the number 1 seed and home field advantage. So basically, they also say the Ravens cannot clinch the division even if they beat the Bengals in Week 18, because an 11-5 Cincinnati team would be better than 11-6 Baltimore. So then they also mentioned that the Chiefs can clinch the AFC's number 1 seed with a win Saturday, where basically they would be the only team capable of reaching 14 wins. They also mentioned the Chiefs would have the number 1 seed if the Bills lose to the Patriots in Week 18, which of course we say any given Sunday, but I mean that should be one that we should be able, knock on wood, hopefully should go in our favor. But then they also mentioned the Bills can clinch the number 1 seed with a win versus the Patriots and a Chiefs loss to the Raiders in Week 18, which we all know the Raiders suck. And then they also mentioned the Bengals can clinch the number 2 seed with a win against the Ravens and a Bills loss versus the Patriots in Week 18, which they would go to a strength of victory tiebreaker. And Lamar Jackson, right now, we don't even know if he is going to play next week.
He's not playing. Don't even go
there. So that settles that, because we saw the Steelers come back against the Ravens in the fourth quarter in that game last week. So it's so that's kind of what they're looking at. But I mean, it could really go in so many different ways at this point, whether they add a Week 19 or they decide to just let it be what it is.
Maybe. I would honestly just leave it as a draw, because nobody really won that game. I mean, I know the Bengals were up by like 4 points in the first quarter.
Yeah, but that was only like 12 minutes. That was only like, what, 6 minutes in? I mean...
Yeah, something like that. Like, it doesn't really count, because nothing really happened at that point yet. I mean, outside of the Tyler Boyd touchdown, that's really it.
Right,
but,
and the Tyler Bass field goal.
Yeah, that's really it. But outside of that, though, I would just call it a draw. Let them get the... Because even at this point, based on just the circumstances, I don't even care if the Bills get the number 2 seed or the number 1 seed, for that matter. I would rather if they just got the number 2 and just go with it, because... And put it this way, if they do get the number 2 seed, they'll play whoever gets the last seed, and then they would likely play the Bengals in the second round in Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I'm sorry, by the way, I had to take a phone call. My daughter was calling me, but the whole situation.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
But what was the question? What should happen with the game, or what?
Yeah, like the question is, because there's speculation that the game for the Bills-Bengals game, because they're talking about pushing it back. They're saying that there might be a possibility of having a bye week for every team in the AFC playoffs going into Week 19, which, like, Week 18 would go as normal, but Week 19 would be Bills-Bengals, and then the wild card round for round 1 for the AFC, and then the NFC would go on the wild card, a bye week, and then the following week would be the AFC bye week, and then the NFC teams would play.
Okay, here's my opinion. My opinion is that Week 19 should be just Bills-Bengals.
I agree. I think, if anything, they should make it as a Thursday night game.
Yeah, let them play it.
It'd be absolutely epic, and you know how many fucking people... You want some ratings, you want some you want some viewers? There's no other football to watch. Everybody's going to be watching that fucking game.
Right.
Everybody.
And everyone's going to want both sides to win.
And plus, everyone's going to be watching it just for the fact of, oh, hey... And I'm not saying this in a mean way, but even the people who don't watch football are going to watch it because they're going to be like, oh, that's the game where the guy went down and almost died. You know what I mean? People are going to... It's going to get views. It's going to get views. It's going to get lots of hype. And I think it should be just that game only. Mm-hmm. Fuck the wild card. Fuck all that shit.
Yeah, but before the incident, there was a lot of aspirations on the line. The Bills were fighting to get the number 1 seed. The Bengals were trying to get the number 1 seed and the AFC North. Mm-hmm. But there was a lot of hype going into that game, and it was supposed to be a classic. I mean, it could still very well be. Like, before the incident, okay, fine, whatever. After the incident, I said, personally, I don't really care at this point. I was just so emotionally, like, distraught with how the things turned out with Hamlin. I think all of us felt that way. Like, we almost felt, like, defeated in a sense, because, like, you worked so hard to get to this point, and then it just got, flushed down the toilet because of a serious cardiac arrest injury or something like that, and which is rare. And people are like, what do you do now? But I think now that the information is coming out, that it's a very good chance that Hamlin is going to make it. And, obviously he's still in critical condition and then still working his way to get back to normal. At least that's what we're all hoping for, God forbid. And, you got to play the Bills-Bengals game because it still has aspirations. But, again, they have no choice but to play this game at this point, because they already called it off for the rest of the week because that's just too much trauma going on. So I think if anything, they should make it as a prime time special game on like week 19 on like the following Sunday or whatever, and then give the Bengals and Bills an extra bye or something like that. I don't know how they're going to plan this out, but
Jordan Rooney,
like
a good friend of Damar Hamlin's.
It has to be the Bills and the Bengals getting the bye either way because they've been playing. But I can guarantee you, and this is just I'm just saying this personally, is that all the executives for the NFL, and I can guarantee you, all they see right now is dollar signs. I'm not saying they don't care about Hamlin's situation, whatever, but I can guarantee you right now, all they see is fucking. It's like a bull seeing. They say see red, they see dollar signs, and I can guarantee it. And I'll say it now, and I'll say it here so everybody can witness that this game will happen. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I know it's going to happen because they can't let it not happen.
Right. And it's a money-making business, and I get that. But it's like, it's just the timing of the situation. That's what it really is. Because you're so close to wrapping up the regular season, and the playoffs start in a week and a half. And almost like 90% of the NFL is almost complete. And the biggest game of the year that was supposed to be played is canceled or temporarily canceled just for the time being because of all this. But the other rumor I've also heard is that in spite of putting the Bengals-Bills game where it is, I've heard that the NFL might consider eliminating the bye week before the Super Bowl, which is around the time the Pro Bowl is played, eliminate that and just go from like the wild card to the divisional round, the conference championship, then the Super Bowl in that order. No bye week, no nothing.
That's dumb though. That's just stupid.
I agree. Well,
that's utterly stupid because then you want the best football you can see. You're not going to get it if you do that. You need a rest week. You need something in between there.
Right. And again, the Bills played 2 games in 5 days in late November around Thanksgiving break. So they have the experience of doing it. And I'm not saying that they're going to use it as an excuse to why the Bills shouldn't play in that game. What I think is going to happen is they're going to use it like the way that if a few years ago during the pandemic for COVID-19, there were some games that were moved around because of people getting exposed and then getting tested positive falsely and whatever. And they moved the game, and I remember they moved the Bills-Titans game because I think like 20-plus guys on Tennessee's roster at the time were infected, and they had to postpone the game to like a Tuesday night or something like that. And half of the Titans roster wasn't even able to play, and they still managed to win the game somehow.
Yeah. There's good ways to do this, and there's stupid ways to do this. So hopefully they pick the right way.
Yeah.
To me, in my mind, is you just let the Bills and the Bengals play, and then do whatever you have to after. But you have to have a bye week in between. You can't put the Bills in that situation.
Yeah.
You have to give them some break. And you have to, it just makes more sense to do it that way.
Yeah.
Fuck all the wild card bullshit in that week. Just leave it to the next week. I understand that, but still. You have to give them a break.
Yeah, and one other argument I've heard too is that they wouldn't be able to crown the Chiefs AFC champs because think about it, if the Chiefs win that game on Saturday, they would basically be crowned AFC champs or the AFC whatever, and the Bills wouldn't have the opportunity to bounce back because the game got delayed. So I'm not sure how they'll do it because I don't know if they'll hold it off to see how Buffalo does or whatever. I don't know how they're going to determine it because. Again, that game had playoff aspirations, and a lot of the scheduling had to do with how the Bengals were being approached, with they were going to win the AFC North, or if they were going to lose and have to be in a primetime game where they would have to fight it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, at the same time, I don't know if you've seen the statement from Patrick Mahomes about the whole situation or whatever. I don't think at this point he cares. You know what? I legit think that no team at this point cares where they fall into place. They just, I obviously they still want to win, obviously, Every team has aspirations of winning the Super Bowl. I'm just saying that at this point, they're thinking what's best for them, for Hamlin, the league, and whatever happens after that. That's what I think. I don't think everyone's too butthurt about who finishes where right now at this point until it gets all sorted out.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
For sure.
I don't even know how they're going to approach this. Like, again, this has never happened before, and it's going to be a very tricky situation with how the NFL handles this because, for one, obviously, we're talking about aspirations, and a lot of people don't care right now because of Hamlin's health, and they want to make sure he's okay. I mean, in human nature, I think that's pretty normal to ask. It's like, forget the game. We care more about him. But unfortunately, people like Skip Bayless are horrible examples of situations of what not to do.
Oh, yeah.
And the human nature of things come out of it on the side of all this, and it shows good people. It shows who has compassion, who has morals and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, as much of a tragedy as it is, and I hate being that guy, I really do, with my sincere thoughts. I hate it, but as much of as it was as a tragedy for the Damar Hamlin situation, football is a business, and they have to keep playing. They have to, and they've already sent out the injury report for Sunday.
In the end, you know what they say: the show must go on.
Mm-hmm. The world's not going to stop.
It has to keep going forward. It has to go on, and I'm sure if Hamlin could voice his opinion right now, he'd be saying, let's go get it." Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's that's the reality to the situation, is that the show must go on, even if people think it doesn't.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Right.
I would say too that I think the best ending to the story is if the Bills somehow make the Super Bowl and they win it. If Damar Hamlin cannot play throughout the rest of the season, or if he ever can play ever, the first thing I think they would do is, if the Bills win the Super Bowl, is have Damar Hamlin on the stage and show him the Vince Lombardi trophy and let him be the first one to lift it. That's what I think that should happen.
Just give him the MVP. Call it a day.
There you go.
That would be cool. So I remember that happened with the Red Wings many, many years ago with Vladimir Konstantinov when he was paralyzed.
Yep, it did. It did happen. That's what you. That's hockey. That's the best of the best. That's what happens. That's what's supposed to happen. That's what should happen.
Right. 100% agree. With that being said, I know we ended up spending a lot of time on this tonight, which was actually a good thing. We just wanted to get a lot of our thoughts out. But any from anybody before we wrap up?
I just want to send out my thoughts and prayers to Damar Hamlin and his family. I'm not a religious guy, but the number 3 is supposedly a sign of the angels, and may your wings spread flying out, and it's the best way I could do it, and let them know that everybody's looking out for you. Everybody is praying for you, cheering for you to fight through this, and I know he can do it. I mean, it's unknown if he does come out, but we're all paying for him, pay respect and all that stuff. So we're just hoping for the best.
Okay, and I'll say the same. Prayer might not seem like a lot to some people. Like, I'll give an example, a quick example. When you were in my profession for as long as I was in, if you didn't believe there was a God, you did at a certain point, and if you didn't believe it, you were believing at that time. So my thoughts and prayers go out to the family, the Buffalo fan base too, because. But Godspeed, quick recovery, get back out of Hamlin.
Yeah, and I'll basically say a lot of the same things that you guys did as well too. First and foremost, thoughts and prayers go out to the Hamlin family, of course. We're thinking of the Buffalo fan base as well, the Cincinnati fan base, because they were there at the same time it happened, and I know it takes a lot out of them too. And really, besides that, just want to say like you did, Adam, Godspeed, and to the ICU staff, and of course all the medical professionals there. Same thing. May the good Lord go ahead and give you the healing power to keep going. So, we wish you all the best. And if by some chance Damar Hamlin ends up watching this show at some point, just know we're thinking of you. So. With that being said, of course, as usual, we did have quite a few people watching tonight, and of course, we thank you for watching. We appreciate it. We know this was a special episode. We usually don't do one topic for an entire show, but it's important. We wanted to get our thoughts out there, kind of give you what we knew and just our take on it. So until next time, everybody, take care of yourselves and each other. We'll see you.